Welcome to this Flex webinar. I'm your host, Markus. Today, we are going to be doing an introduction to custom reports. Okay. For this, the key thing here, what we will be covering today, we are going to talk about what software that we use to do this and where and how for you to get it. We're going to talk about how to download the existing reports in the system that you can then make these minor changes to. We're going to talk about how to make some of those minor format changes, updates, things like move around, change some colors, maybe delete a field, simple things like that. I'm then going to show you how to upload your data, your new report into the system and to turn it on. That's kind of the core of what it is. We're going to also make sure you know where the user manual article that has more information, including a lot more in-depth than what we will cover today, because it just takes a lot more time to really get into the other parts of it. Okay. What we will not be covering today is how to add new fields or new data to existing fields in those. That gets to a whole additional level, much more complicated. We will not be covering that today. We're not going to be talking about how to make major format updates, like a filter of the data that's going to come through, adding additional filter of some kind. Okay. Basically, any field, if it gets to where it looks like it's a lot of code, we are not going to get into it. I do not want to overly complicate this. I do not want to confuse people in that kind of way. Okay. I do want to also say that as we are developing Flex 5, we are looking into new and better ways to do reporting. We are very early in that process. And so at this time, I have no information to give on that. Also, any questions relative to that, I will not have any answers for there. Okay. So those are the key things real quick. So the first little overview that I want to say is that the software that we use for this third-party software is called Jaspersoft Studio. Okay. Flex on the back end runs version 6.1.1. Okay. Now, you get later versions, but that is what Flex is actually running, 6.1.1, okay? When we go to get this, you want to make sure you get the Community Edition, because the Community Edition is free. We have specifically chosen this software so that we can let customers go get it, and you don't have to go buy an expensive software package, okay? You can use up to version 6.10. That's actually the version I use and what I will be using in the demo today. Or before. I understand, I think Eddie in support uses 6.6. It's fine. Do not go later than 6.10. They will break things. There are new features that they've added to Jaspersoft that the 6.1.1 goes, I don't know what that is, and it crashes. Okay, so we need to make sure to stick to 6.10 or earlier. Okay, so to get the software, let me switch to my screen. Now you can just, and very commonly I've just said, go and Google Jaspersoft Studio Community Edition. Okay, but another really easy way to get there is going to be reference to that article that I mentioned in our help center in the user manual on there. To get to the user manual, currently still only from your Flex 4 system, you can go to help and then to the Flex user manual. Okay. Once there, you can just go in the top here and start to search for like custom reports. And the article I'm talking about is this designing custom reports. Okay, that's on how you to do it. There's some other ones that are going to be on how you request for us to make a quote for you, for us to do it. But on you wanting to learn yourself, you want to go to this designing custom reports article. Okay, from here, the link here for download and install Jaspersoft Studio will take you to this part here, and then the link to where the Community Edition section is. And you'll see here, and you'll see that they're up to 6.13, and I do not want that version. So we need to back up here to 6.10 or earlier, okay? You'll see on this list, I can't even pick 6.1.1, which is what Flex is using. But like I said, 6.10 works, so use that. As you will see, it is available for Mac, Windows, or Linux. So it's available for basically any OS you may be operating on. That's fine either way. Again, it is free, but when you go to download it, it's going to ask you to sign up for their community, basically their forums. Okay. I used to have a way you could get around it. The last time I went there, I couldn't seem to find the way to get around it. It's not a giant deal because the last time I then signed up, they sent me one email trying to market to me and I didn't answer it and I said unsubscribe and I've never received another email. So I think it's perfectly fine to give them, that information. So it should be fine for you. Okay. We're not going to go ahead and download and install it because I already have it. So once you get that, I just want to show the basic. This is kind of the interface with no current open project we're working on of Jaspersoft. Okay. So that's what it is there. So now what I want to again focus on, we're talking under the idea of we're going to find an existing report in Flex that we want to make some minor changes to. We're going to download, we're going to make those minor changes, and we're going to make a new report and then be able to change that. Okay. What I've decided for this example is I'm going to use the quote with pricing look B and then make some minor changes to it. So first, I just want to run it so we see what it looks like by default, and then we can see that difference at the end after I've made some changes. So here's quote with pricing look B, how it looks by default, what's going on. And I've decided I don't like that this logo is up high and this is down low, so I'm going to move this up higher and get rid of some of this extra white space. And then I'm going to talk about changing these headers here to maybe add some more color to this and clean that up. So that's kind of what we're going to go through. Okay. To then go download that existing report, you need to go to System Settings, Embedded Reports. Okay. We see here Embedded Reports. Okay. All of the reports that are available for you to download and modify are here. You will note there are some reports that are not. For example, the default financial document does not exist. It is not a Jaspersoft report. It is a Java report. You can't edit it in that same kind of way. But we can go down here to the bottom and find our quote with pricing look B, and we can then download that report. Okay, we're gonna go to my downloads and we'll see here this here. And the important thing to say is when it is a Jaspersoft file, it is this JRXML file. Okay, it would be .jrxml. Okay, that is a Jaspersoft file. Okay, in this, I'm just going to leave it in my downloads folder and open it from there. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. I won't get over all the quirks of it, but you will notice a quirk that when I open things, it doesn't automatically open. So it would not open automatically. Very often you'll open it and it will open in Jaspersoft, but you have to change tabs. For whatever reason, for me, at least, it doesn't properly change tabs. Okay. So here we are is the basic of the code of what that report kicks out. Now, an important thing when making edits in this is if you're comfortable with a lot of other kind of graphical edit software, if you use Photoshop or Illustrator, any kind of thing like that, you're probably fairly comfortable with what you're going to be doing here. The only thing I'm going to mention on the code is you just notice all of these where there's these $F, and then some of them you can't see anything, and some of them you see kind of the name of that. All of those are just stating that is a variable that's being pulled when the report is run. That's saying, hey, I'm going to find that information. Whereas some of these others, like here, these are just static text that's hard-coded into here. It's going to say that no matter what. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom in a little here first on this. So for this, like I said, the first thing I decided I want to do is I want to take this information in the top and I want to move it up so that it's aligned at the top with those items. Okay. For that, very simple. I can just click the box to select it. You can see it's selected, and then I can drag and drop to move it around. You can also use the arrow keys to move them around. A single click will move it 1 pixel. A shift click will move it 10 pixels. If I want to go to the corner, you see that it does try to auto line things up. So if I went all the way to the top right there, same with these. Now, another thing to note is you can move multiple together. So I could grab these together and say, I just want to move them both at the same time. And again, I want to kind of move it to there. Okay, so pretty simple, drag and drop, move that. Okay, now on this, I've made it so there's a bunch of extra white space here. Now, one important thing to note, and I'm going to click into here, you notice that on the left, I've got this red line going from there to there, where there's a blue line here and there's a blue line here. Basically, as part of the report, unlike a Photoshop document, which is more likely just it's a single document, there are sections of the report, because that's how we get our line items that repeat based on how many line items were on the actual quote that we're kicking out. So this here, and we'll look in the bottom left, that is one section I will talk about. We will not be talking about this section up here. See that this is the outline, and you see that when I'm selected there, we have highlighted that this is the title section. It says, hey, this is the title block. If I instead select to here, we see that that is the column header. Okay, so what I want to do is get rid of some of this extra white space here in my title block for that. Now, the important thing to note is the properties of whatever you are selected are in the bottom right. Okay, they're down here, we see properties. So I can change the height of this by changing these pixels here, but that will always just go from the bottom up and it will not automatically move these. So what I want to do first is take all of these and I want to select them and move them up. So I'm getting rid of the white space, and then I'm going to make this section shorter to get rid of the white space I've created below it. I'm going to use the shift click and I'm going to go 10, 20, 30 pixels, and I'm going to call that good. Okay. Because of that, then what I'm going to do is click back out and select the section, and then do the math here of what's 30 less pixels. Well, that would be 167. Select out, and we'll see that that squishes that section so that we don't have all that wasted white space anymore. Okay, so there's kind of just a couple things. We moved around a bit of items. We changed the height of that specific block. Okay, next thing that I want to do is we talked about, I want to make some changes to the header here. Okay, so what I actually decided I want to do is I want to add some color to the header itself, but the other is I've decided with my updates, say post-COVID, this is all theoretical, that I'm going to now work where I just give people the line item total, the extended price. I stop giving them this information on my quotes. They just see, hey, there's 2 of these or whatever, and the total for that is this, okay? They can do some backwards math if they want, but that's what I'm going to tell them. So the first thing that I'm just going to say here is I'm going to then go in and select these. Now you notice for that I did a shift click, and that will grab everything between where I started and where I ended. Or again, I could control click to add things one at a time. And you can select things in multiple blocks, but it can limit what you have access to in your properties because it will only list the things that are shared properties. Anything that is not shared will not list anymore because you would change them to be different at different times. But what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to then just hit the delete button and delete those, okay? Just to show, again, doesn't get complicated to remove something, it's complicated to add something additional, okay? Then what I want to do is I want to take the description here, and because they are currently the same dimensions, I do have that available, but rather than just trying to guess the pixels, I'm going to grab this and just stretch it over to here. Now, there was that little gap in between these, and I am going to get rid of that because I'm going to put a background color in this. And by putting the background color, I don't want to have that little gap in that background color. For whatever reason, this stopped 1 pixel short. Well, then we will click here and we will add. Now, note this is important because you see 4 different boxes. The top here is its location within the block. Where is it located? We want to make sure we're not editing that. That's generally easier to do by drag and dropping, moving around. But here, are you going to say, oh, I want this to get to 439. Always when changing a dimension, it goes to the right and goes down, Okay, even if you want it to get taller, you need to move it up and then make it taller, or make it taller and then move it up. It will always stretch the other direction. It assumes you're in the correct position at the top left corner, and it extends down and right when you add to the pixels in the properties section. So in the same thing here, like I commented, we're going to change this. I'm going to take my quantity and actually slide it over, and we're going to extend our description even more. So again, we're going to select it. We're going to see if it actually lines up rather than, yeah, this time it actually lined up. Okay. One thing I want to show really quick though, if you are moving or changing the dimensions of something, and you suddenly see that the surrounding border, those dots are green, that means this box overlaps with another box. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. You could choose to do that, and maybe the result is what you want. But it is a little reminder, if you're trying to get things to line up perfect, that you want to make sure there are no green dots, and then you are, and that's sometimes if I'm just, arrowing over to move, I go till it is one green dot, go back. Now I know that I'm right at the edge. They are butting up right against each other. Okay. So now I've changed how many fields, and I've changed some of the dimensions of this to make it solid across here. The other on this, because I'm not listing the other price things, I don't need this to say extended price. So I'm going to show, because there's no code for this, this is a static field where we're just typing the information. And so I can just go in here and say, I'm just going to call it price then, because they don't have any other information. They don't need it to be the extended price. It's just the price. So that's there. These fields are different because there's variables in them. Even though this one seems that it's hard-coded, the fact that there's these quotes means it's a different type of field, and we will not get into that today. So the other key that I want to talk about then is I want to change some coloring. Okay. For the coloring changes, we've got a lot of options. We can change the background of a section, we can change the text color of a section, or we can change the border colors of a section. For this, I'm going to take these three fields, and I'm going to change the background color and the bottom underline, which is the border, a bottom border color. We're going to leave the text as the black. So again, we're over here on the right in our properties, and for the fore color, which is the text itself, and the back color, that is in the first section, the appearance here. Okay. To change the back color, we have to turn off the transparency, or the color won't show up even if we change this from white. Okay. Initially, it's just trying to make it transparent. We want to change that. Then we can click into here, and we can either use the color picker, we can use an HSB, an RGB, or my preferred is the hex code. So I'm going to make this flex blue to CF. So that's the flex blue for the background. Okay. So we see that changed that color there. And then I'm going to select these again. And now I'm going to change the border on the bottom. We're going to go to the borders section here. Okay. And we're going to go to this on the color. And I'm going to make this more of a gray. So this one is 8D, 8D, C. Let's double check. Well, sometimes the order I do this is fickle. But that looks like that is now working correctly. Yep. Okay. Now, before we go off of this, the one other thing I just want to highlight is that when you're going to change something, if you want to make changes to the text beyond just what is in the text, then again, in our properties box, we're going to look at the static text. And then here we can change the alignment of something. We can change the font. Please know that there are fonts in here, but it is pretty limited with what will work in Flex. Know that if you go in here, and there are even a bunch of other, but if you go in here and pick something kind of strange, it is very likely Flex will go, I don't know that. And because we're running a more future version of it, and I'm not sure that it is in 6.1.1. It tends to be best to stick to some stuff at the beginning serif, sans serif, Arial, things like that. But you can try other things, just be prepared that they don't always work. And then again, obviously, you can change the font size, you can change, bold, italics, underline, etc. So there are things, spacing. There's a bit of other things you can do if you want to make some minor tweaks to that sort of information. That's fairly simple, fairly straightforward, okay? When we are done with the edits we've chosen to make, we're going to save this. I'm just, again, saving it back in my download folder by hitting Control S. And now we're going to talk about how to put this back into Flex, okay? So what we're going to do is back into Flex. Now, an important thing to note is that all of the things, a lot of the major things in Flex I'm going to be talking about today, you have to be the administrator or unadministrator to be able to access. If you can't get to these sections, talk to your system administrator about updating your access. That is required for it. So we went to the embedded reports here, but we can't go and upload and update these. These are in the system. They have to be updated on the back end by us. So what you instead need to do is you need to add a new custom report to your system. That again is under System Settings, and then we would go to Custom Reports. Okay, you'll see I have a couple other ones already in here, but I'm going to go to the top right and make a new custom report. Okay, we are going to then browse and go to, I was helping another customer recently. We're going to go in here, to my downloads, and we'll see this guy here. And we're going to run that. And it's going to post the code for it. It doesn't matter. We just hide that. We're going to name our one here. So we're just going to call this the webinar example report. Now, the next thing here is we have to select the extension with where it can be run. Mostly what that means is which type of document do you want to be able to access it from? Because this is a quote, we want to run it as a financial document. If we made change to a whole sheet one or a manifest one, that would be an equipment list. If it was more of a crew call, that would be from a contact list, etc. Those kind of things. Mostly what I find the people most are concerned are financial documents, quotes, invoices, POs, and that's what we do kind of the most. This is just setting security settings on who has the permissions to run them. And my only general recommendation on this is when I'm developing a report and it's not ready for use, I like to turn it for administrators only so that no other employees don't run it while you're still building it and testing it. Because you're going to find you're going to do a lot more of change a little bit, upload it, see how it looks. Change a little more, upload it, see how it works. And so I tend to do that. And then once you're sure you're happy and it's working, come back in and turn that off or add some other groups so you can still keep some restrictions, but say, well, now the sales reps and the management and inventory managers can do it, but I still don't want shop techs or somebody else to do it. Okay? Then on the report formats, general preference is to do PDF and Excel on all of these. You can select whatever you want. If you want to limit it only to PDF, if you want to turn on Word, it's fine. You can set the default sizes. An important thing to note, though, is that in the code of the report, it sets whether it is portrait or whether it is US letter or A4, etc. If you change it, that will override that information and force it to be different. But if you want to stick with what the report is using, you can leave these blank and the report will pass along that information and it will just happen as defaulted in the report itself. Okay. For this example, I'm going to leave that alone and go ahead and say create. Okay. So now we have a new report. The one thing I will just note is below here, there's this section once it's created for parameters, and that is a complicated feature we will not be getting into today. And for this report, we do not need to. Doesn't matter for what we're doing on this report today. So now that we've added it to the system, we have to turn it on to be able to be run from our quotes documents. It doesn't automatically get turned on. For that, we need to go to Projects, Project Elements, pick the project element we want this to be running. For this, we are picking quotes. And once this gets loaded, we are going to go to the Reports tab in our project element settings. Reports. And we're going to go find our report in this instance level. If you do not see it here, there has been an error with how you set something up. But in this, I called it webinar example. So down here at the bottom, we see that I turned it on and hit update. Okay, so now it should load. So we're going to go back to our quote and we're going to right click to reload it and then go look reports. Now, one note is that I've been doing all of this in Flex 4 because right now the downloading and uploading of reports must be done in Flex 4. The running the reports works fine in Flex 5. Up in there, you can do it that way. It's perfectly fine. The other parts, so I just decided to stay in Flex 5. But see, we see now here, we have our webinar example report here. I can go ahead and run it. Now, the thing to be aware is that it will still look okay here. It's when you then hit generate report that you'll find out if something was broken or not. If there's a problem, you're going to get a new tab open that's going to say error 500, and then it's going to give you a lot of code and other information. When I was early in doing this, I got very comfortable with that page. See it very often anymore. So we're going to go ahead and pop that open so we can have as our comparison. Now, I'm not completely happy with the changes that I made. Oh, because so it is higher, but I still left them center, not right on this. We see that I did get rid of a bunch of white space. If we're comparing here, we see that quote is definitely higher. It is farther to the right, but not all the way over because I did leave them center aligned within their boxes, moved and gotten rid of a lot of white space here. And then we've added this blue in our header here and got rid of a bunch of information, okay? So all of those changes that we made have happened. If we're unhappy with them, we can then go back over to Jaspersoft. And this is the good thing of, oh, let's say I want to align these. I didn't like that. I can come back here and select these. Go to the text section and change this to be right aligned. I'm going to save it again. And once you've done the first creation of the report, it's much easier because we just go back to our webinar example report. We re-browse for the report. It should be on the same page unless we've gone and browsed something else. Go there. Again, it's going to pop open our code, hide it, update. And once it's been turned on, we don't have to go and change that it's turned on or not again. We just can go back and say, well, now run against the new code and let's see how that changed its look. So we'll go here and run it. We have our update. And now we see that those things are now all right aligned with this. Still a little extra white space here I could tweak with, but that shows there how to do those minor steps. So that's kind of the key things that I wanted to get into today. Again, getting just the basics of how to download files, start to glance at them, make some minor changes, just formatting things, position things, put them back up, see if they work. Then if you need more help, you can either go to the article on the Help Center, the user manual, go to the user manual and designing custom reports and start to look through this. And or we may do a more advanced webinar in the future. We have not decided that yet.